Today's guest is a wife and self-proclaimed taco queen who lives in Cancun, Mexico, where she manages her online coaching team that she started in 2015 to help hundreds of women build capable, confident bodies through nutrition, training, and mindset. With her broad spectrum of experience as not just a bikini competitor herself, but also a power lifter, and with her own experiences of mental health and eating disorder struggles, and numerous certifications and diplomas to support her approach and the client's approach in their unique journey. She started in the IFBB Elite Federation and then transitioned into NPC Worldwide, where she competed 4 times before earning her pro card at her 5th show. Welcome to the show, Courtney Ustrzycki. How are you doing?
I am so good and so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And listeners, we are doing a video too, so this will be on YouTube. If you want to watch us instead of listen, go to celestial_fit on YouTube and you'll be able to find the episode there. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of this, I got to ask you, is there something you do or think about or a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage?
Oh my gosh, I feel like this is like a dream come true, like you
Oh,
asking me these things, and we need to get into this later. Whenever I go on stage, it's the same kind of mindset I had when I used to be a power lifter. I kind of like an internal like self hyper upper, and I'm always like, okay, let's go. This is my time. I'm ready for this.
love that. That like hype energy we need, because if we don't believe in ourselves, we won't project that energy out there. So
Absolutely.
it's important to do that. Is there anything in particular you tell yourself other than that you got this?
Um, More so when it comes to like bikini competitions, I tell myself like I deserve to be here. The judges are looking at me that like this is my time. So I always just make sure that I have like my own self-confidence again, because yeah, they can see if I'm confident or not confident. So I'm always like, I deserve to be here. I've earned this time. I need to make the most of it and just have fun.
I love that I've earned this time, because we really do put so much effort into this process. It's not even just week after week for 18 weeks. It's a lifetime journey, especially when you've been at it for so long. And I think that there's a lot of passion that comes from competing in this sport that we don't have necessarily when we start. And I was curious, for you, did you always have a passion for coaching, or did that only begin after competing?
Oh, I started doing the coaching before I was a power lifter. So I was like a general personal trainer at a commercial gym, and then I got into powerlifting, which and at that point, like up until I actually started competing in 2019, I was completely against doing any kind of like bikini or bodybuilding competition. I was like, I will never put myself through that. I was so against it.
What did you associate with it that you were like, I won't do it, I'm against it?
There was the so I when I started getting into, I guess, fitness, I knew a girl at the gym that was a competitor, and I just heard like, you know how you hear like those old stories that it's like it's really unhealthy and there's a lot of controversy, and I had this idea in my mind that like if I didn't have fake boobs, I wouldn't be a competitor, and I'm not gonna stick my butt and other parts of like my lower body out on stage. I'm like, that's just so degrading, I thought. And it can be like if you have that kind of mindset. And when I got into powerlifting, I wanted to be able to see what my body was capable of, not just what I looked like. And I think that was really powerful, and I'm like looking back at all of that, I am so glad I did powerlifting for like 5 years before I even thought about stepping on stage or competing for something like my what my body looks like.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. You were able to see your body for what she could do for you, how strong she is, like how much she can perform. But what
Mhm.
changed? Because it's an extreme thought pattern to be like, this is what I think about competing, to now I'm gonna do it. So how did you decide, or when did you decide, like, maybe it's not about that?
Honestly, I thought when so that this was in 2019, I did one competition in the IFBB Elite,
Mhm.
and it was here in Mexico. And at that time, so that was I started prepping at the beginning of June, I think, and then like a couple months into that or before that, and it's like early this time, like right now, that's when a lot of these shows in this area start happening. So people I would see at the gym are starting to compete and stuff. And I always thought, I was like, that looks easy. Like, I am so much stronger. I can deadlift 300 pounds. I could blow you out of the water. I don't need to like prove myself to that. And I thought it was almost stupid. And, but I love powerlifting, but competitions here only happen like once a year. So I'm kind of prepping all year, and I'm like, well, I want to kind of do something else. And then I was seeing this, and some of my friends started competing in the IFBB Elite, and I was like, yeah, I could do it and probably win. So I had like this little chip on my shoulder, but in like a very confident way. And I ended up reaching out to somebody who I knew, who's still my coach to this day, and he's actually from Mexico, so he understands this kind of competitions, but now he lives in Canada, so he understands the NPC and IFBB. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. He could really like understand that, but still give me like the proper guidance and everything in English.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, it was like a short prep, and I honestly thought it was easy. And even though I won that competition, now it was just me and one other girl, but still the point is that I won. Um, it taught me so much more and how much harder it can be. I still believe, like looking back, it was probably the easiest and most fun prep that I've ever had, because we were trying to grow me. We weren't trying to diet down. So I wasn't doing any cardio. I was still kind of doing my powerlifting lifts, and I was eating like 400 grams of carbs like every day. And I'm like,
Wow.
if this is what bikini competitions is, like, I'm totally in. And then we transitioned, of course, into NPC, which I'm sure we'll get into. So things drastically changed after that.
Yeah. So how have your preps been different compared to that first prep where you were feeding into it, growing? Like, has that always been the case for you?
Yeah, I'm still very small as a competitor. So for reference, I'm 5'7", and I've always been, like, for the most part, not always, but for I guess my competition history, I've been somewhere between like 115 and 120 is kind of like average-ish stage weight. When I won my pro card in December this last year, I was 110. So
Girl,
I have a very small body. And
that's
for me,
tiny.
even as a power lifter, like, I am not a good power lifter at all, but I loved it and it's just so much fun. And I'm just way too like tall and skinny to be beneficial for powerlifting. So with bikini, I'm still constantly trying to grow into it. We still obviously have to find like the balance between putting on weight, making sure it's good weight, and then dieting down and getting that right conditioning. So prep every time has been more difficult. So I kind of started prepping in 2020, but then obviously couldn't compete. The idea was to go back to Canada and do a competition there, which would have been awesome. That didn't happen. So I didn't actually do my first NPC show until June 2021.
Wow.
And every prep got harder. I was doing cardio, like a lot of cardio and fasted cardio, and then we were slashing calories. Like, you know how like every prep is different, and it was
Yeah.
definitely getting into the hard stuff. And then I was learning, like, there was a lot of, I wouldn't call it mental health issues, but there was a lot of like personal struggles and being like, am I good enough? This is too hard for me. Can I do it? It started taking over my life, and I was like almost resisting that, where I was trying to find a balance between living in Mexico and doing all these like explorations and having a boyfriend in another city and trying to grow my business and then trying to be a competitor. And I was trying to find this balance. And and everyone like listening to this knows, like, ultimately, like, from an outside perspective, there is no balance.
Mhm.
It's like competitions kind of have to rank number one. And it wasn't until last year when I like went in all in on that. And I think that is a huge reason why I won my pro card, because I was finally able to stop resisting so much.
Wow. That's definitely an interesting thing because I find striving for balance is very similar to striving for perfection, and it's not possible.
Yeah.
But if we know what's worth prioritizing and what we really want to put our focus into, then we're better able to feel balanced because we're putting our energy where we actually want to, where it feels good to. You start seeing the payoff. And I think it actually then translates into those other areas of life that we were trying so hard to make work. So I want to ask you about this actual, not finding balance, but kind of separating yourself from all those things to focus on competing. How have you since been able to manage running a business, being married, and now going into a prep for your pro debut?
I don't know. I don't know how I do this. The biggest thing, so when I had met my now husband, my boyfriend at the time, he came to my first competition, the IFBB Elite one, and he was watching me and he's like, I don't know anything. Like he had no concept. When we just before that, like we had been dating for a couple months earlier, so he had no idea what I was doing, but he was so into me that he was like, whatever you need. Like I vividly remember I would come over and like hang out with him on weekends, and he bought me one of those like little meal prep containers, like the little like travel bags. And he was like, do you need more water? Like, what do you need right now? And he was like, because he knew that made me happy.
Aw.
And ultimately, like as I got better and competed more, he's been there like non-negotiable. He's like, whatever you need, let's make this happen. I think like I feel like he likes me doing this more than I like doing this. And I friggin' love doing this. Like, he's so invested and he's like, you are the best. Whatever you need, we will make this happen. So I feel like I'm very fortunate in that sense, in that he's always known me for this kind of like lifestyle. And even before I got into bikini competitions, I was really like, because of powerlifting, really aware of my training, my nutrition. I was more flexible with my nutrition, but I always paid attention to it. So it wasn't a huge transition when I got into bikini competitions, but he's always been very supportive. And last year, so oh man, so many things. So around 2021, I hired coaches for the first time. So I now have 3 ladies that work for me as well. 2021 was a big year of growing my team. So now I'm very fortunate that I'm at the point where, not that my business is just kind of running itself, but it's not going through like that big growth phase. It's at a point where everything's like very stable and consistent, which I'm very, very grateful. So I had to realize that had to be in place before I could go all in on competing, because I know that when peak week comes up and things get difficult and I'm traveling, especially if I'm going international, I'm like, I can't be running around like trying to reply to clients and giving like half-ass effort. Like I need to be all in. So I needed to make sure the other areas of my life were very stable. I needed to make sure that my husband was unconditionally supportive, or at least unconditionally understanding of what was required. And he knows everything. Like he takes care of me in my competitions better than he takes care of himself, and I'm so grateful for that. But I do feel like there was a lot of framework and structure and trial and error involved before I could achieve this kind of balance for competitions anyway.
Yeah, I think you really have to establish like what's your business structure, what's your schedule like, what are the tasks that need to get done, what could be outsourced, or what did my coaches need to know in order for me to function that way. And I think that requires the skill of organization, discipline, planning, and being able to connect what you're doing now to what you foresee in the future. And a lot of people on the surface don't recognize that, but when you're in it, you know that's required. And today you had posted on your story how you have certain days of the week where you're not doing client work. So walk us through something like that. Like, how did you come to that conclusion that you needed things like that?
Again, like a lot of trial and error. My business has grown and shifted and turned and like gone down and up and like all over these things. And when I ended up going like all in on my business, right before I moved to Mexico, I I had to go all in, and I somehow, and I have no idea where this came from, I like developed this mentality where I was like, I just need to go for it. I just need to start taking risks. And I grew up in a very small, I'm going to say like a vanilla town, and everything in my family was very structured. And it's like typical, I'd say, North American society. It's like you go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, like all of that stuff. And I did everything different. Like I am doing these competitions, which is just like so crazy and weird. And even like powerlifting for a lot of people, they're
Yeah,
like, that's not feminine.
right.
like, you don't look like a power lifter. And then I moved to another country. I'm doing my own business. I just got married. I'm not having kids. Like, things are so drastically different. And that all happened through a series of like, oh, I'm just going to do like one thing slightly different and then see how that goes. And now it's gotten to the point where I'm just like, I'm just going to go for it. And with my business, I just kind of figure things out. I'm like, okay, does this logically make sense? Yes. Could it fail? Probably. But what happens? Like, I do like to weigh out like the risk and rewards. And now that I have my coaches with me, it's amazing because something that I think is a great idea, I get three other powerful women having the conversation with me and looking at things from another perspective. So I use them a lot for support, and we all kind of like work together to find what works. And yeah, like for example, the me taking the rest days, it makes more sense to have like a balance. So there were times where I would only have one day off in the week. And then I'm like, okay, I can't do this. And then one day, or at one point, I had like Tuesdays off. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. I want that Wednesday. So it's the middle of the week, because I cannot go hard and extreme for a long period of time and then like turn off. I need to like I need to have a more consistent flow. I like that better in my life rather than doing like an extreme and then the opposite. So yeah, just a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. Oh, I relate to that so much. I started my business in 2015 as well. And over the years, it's evolved so much. It's changed with me. And I've had to learn like my thresholds, you could say.
Yeah.
And similarly, like I can't see myself, like I've never taken like a week off of not, I just since 2015, there's never been a time in my life where I'm not responding to an email or posting or whatever, because it's just my life and I like it that way. And I think you learn like how you function best, exactly like what's most sustainable long term. Some people it is, I'm going to take a 2-week vacation, but I'm going to go hard for 3 months in between every 3 months, and that's fine, but you kind of find what works for you.
Yeah. And I think because a big thing now is, because it's not just me and like a handful of my clients, I have to have other people consider, like other considerations for other people as well. Like I have 3 other teams that I have to manage as well as mine. So I need to make sure that even though I take Wednesdays and Sundays off, even though they're my no client days, I still need to be available during certain times for my coaches. So they know that I have boundaries, but also I need to be available because like this is my baby. I can't just be like, well, screw you, I'll talk to you on Thursday morning.
Yeah. And it's kind of like those days, I have some days of the week where I don't do client calls. But on
Yes.
those days of the week, I'm doing something else. I'm prepping podcasts, I'm reaching out to leads, I'm communicating with people I haven't spoken with in a while, or I'm coming up with new fun ideas. Like just I'm still in it because like you said, it's your baby, it's your mission, it's something you're passionate about. And I'm always really curious actually about habits people have, but maybe they don't realize are contributing to their success or haven't verbalized that. So I'm curious if for you, you have any day-to-day habits over the last almost, I think it's 7, 8,
Eight
whatever.
years.
Yeah, 8 years, that you feel have contributed to your success.
Oh, I have so many. I am like I thrive on structure and organization and notes and lists, like all of that. Like I thrive. Um, Honestly, I think bodybuilding has helped me develop better habits and structure because of the importance and like the ripple effect that those things
Mm.
have. So I have like a morning routine that I thrive in, whether I'm in prep season or not. I have like my boundaries, my work schedule. All my clients know that I have work times. They have to submit by a certain time so that I can have a certain flow. And like I'm just so incredibly organized, and I understand, especially when it comes to my clients, like not everyone's aligned with my time. And I know like time zones are different and life happens and people get sick and emergencies are there. And like sometimes we forget to do a check in. Like I get that. I understand that we are all humans. I prioritize and really express the importance of communication and that like things are going to happen. But I have systems and structures and deadlines in place for a reason. It's for my own sanity, my own organization, and to keep the flow. Because again, it's not just me and a handful of people. Like there's almost 100 of us that all need to somehow at some point in time be in sync.
Yep.
And I think it's really important. And again, I have no idea where this came from. I did not come from this like crazy entrepreneur leadership family. So it's just so weird, but I just go with the flow, and there's a lot of things that just make sense to me. And I don't know, I just feel my whole life in such a good way. I'm just like, let's just see what happens.
That's really beautiful. I think that's a testament too to the idea that, or the fact that you don't have to come from that knowledge, that background, that experience, that upbringing to actually pursue or create that for yourself. And if you have that personal hype in you, you have that passion, you'll find a way. And I was just interviewing the owner of Toxic Angels Bikini, Margaret, and we had a really great conversation. And she too, I was like, well, how you doing it all? How'd you expand? She's like, I just take it one day at a time. It's like, I go with the flow and trust that things will happen. She also said she takes risks. So I think success leaves clues, and routine is important. Lists, understanding, having that organization. You brought up how prep has supported you in that too. And I think when you're in a prep mode, there's certain things you absolutely have to do in order to be ready for your show. So those have to fit in your day, but then in order to live and survive, you also have to do these certain things. So it's nice to incorporate that. Now, I do want to touch back on something you said though. Okay. So you talked about boundaries. I think it's very easy for people to know what boundaries they want to set, and they set them. But the problem is a lot of people don't know how to uphold them. They let people cross those boundaries too much or push them. So how do you respect your boundaries while also making sure your clients and your customer service feels like it's still there or maybe being prioritized?
Oh, I feel like it defeats, if there's resistance when it comes to boundaries, it like defeats the purpose of it. And that is like my own personal boundaries, even with like habits and stuff. If I'm like resisting something, like, oh, I have to make this a habit. But if I hate it and hate doing it, it's like, you're not going to be successful. The same thing with boundaries is like, I feel like it has to make sense, and it has to be feasible or realistic for other people. I'm not going to tell my clients, well, your check-in has to be done by 7 a.m. if they're on like another time zone and that's like 4 a.m. Like they're right. The boundaries are more so built for me, but they're built for others as well. And I think it's really, really important to have understanding to, and this is one thing that one of my clients, she always says this, you have to be flexible but firm. I think that can apply to like so many different things. And like, I have to be firm on my boundaries because I'm also leading by example.
Yep.
I tell my clients, like, I will not reply. Like, I have to have my boundaries of like, I will not reply to you on Wednesdays. They know that because that teaches them, one, that things are going to be okay. And if they go over their macros, like, we're going to be fine for 24 hours. Or it also teaches them that like they need to take time off as well. And I still, and I just posted this like just before our conversation, like I still get really overwhelmed with realizing how much of an impact my actions make. And I know that there's like a huge ripple effect, not just within my coaching, but on social media as well, and people around me. So I know that things that I do, the reasons why I do these things, they don't just impact me, they impact others, whether it's indirectly or directly.
100%, whether it's because you're in a better mood or because then they model it or because they recognize that you live by example too. Because I think one of the best compliments ever is when my clients say you practice what you preach, you're doing what you tell us, or it's cool to see you executing on that. And I'm like, wow, so much of this has just become normal for me, but it's something they're trying to turn into a habit. And you said that you don't think that it's beneficial to do things where there's a lot of resistance. And I would second that, especially because our life really is built up of habits. When we look back, it's like, okay, if you spent 10 minutes every morning on a particular routine and you did that your entire life, but you hated that routine, that means a good portion of your life, a good percentage of your life, you did not like. That's unfortunate. Same thing goes for the negative or bad habits that we create, even unknowingly or unwillingly, that have to be changed. It ends up making up a majority of our life. And the way that we look back and one day we'll say that was like 10% of how I spent my days.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing that I really prioritize when I have like my morning routine. My morning routine sometimes takes me like 2 hours, but I love it because everything, it flows and it's so easy. And especially because like I'm kind of like not really in and out of prep, but I've kind of been like nonstop on this like all in on bodybuilding for like 2 years now. So that when I get deeper into prep, the transition into that, it just becomes so much easier, and then it's just one less thing that I have to worry about. It's not like, oh, I'm 4 weeks out now, I need to start doing this and this and this. It's like, oh, I'm already doing it. Like, and it just becomes so much easier. So I found ways to make even all my prep related habits enjoyable, so that it's, yeah, there's like less resistance and I have my boundaries and I can embrace all of this instead of constantly being in like this stressed state.
Absolutely. I actually have a list of commitments on my wall right here that are applicable in any season. And it's something I encourage my clients to do too, for whether it's mental health, physical health, family health, spiritual health, whatever it is. We need to make sure that we have things that are consistent in whatever season or focus we have, because that makes those transitions so much easier. Whereas like if we are like, oh, in prep, I'm always doing this, and in purpose season, I'm always doing that, it feels like a big transition. But if you have like those things that you can do no matter what, it feels good. So you don't have to share your morning routine. I know some people don't like to, but is there anything you would like to share that you do in the morning?
Oh, I love my morning routine. It's so great because I wake up so early, like sometime between 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning. Mexico, everyone wakes up at like 9 o'clock. So I get like a
Wow,
good chunk of time in the morning where it's like it's dead man land. It's
that's
amazing.
cool.
It's so quiet. My husband's sleeping and snoring in the bedroom, and I just like do my own thing without any disruptions. So now because I'm in prep, things are a little bit more firm, but I will wake up, have a shower, do like my bathroom. I'm doing all my beautiful skincare and everything. I have like a morning drink. I go do stretching and mobility, and then I will make my coffee. Sometimes if I have to do check-ins, I will do a posing practice. Usually, if not, my posing practice will be in the afternoon, but I usually commit at least 5 minutes just to slip on my heels and do a couple little spins. And then I've recently adapted doing fasted cardio. I have a treadmill in my office at home, which is I want to make a post about this. This is one of like the most beneficial self-care habits I've ever implemented, is doing fasted cardio, which sounds like, ooh, what's so magical about fasted cardio? It's like I am just walking on the treadmill for 15 minutes first thing in the morning, and it's just quiet and I'm moving my body, because otherwise I plop and I sit down and I have my coffee and I don't move for like 6 hours.
Yeah.
So just getting up and moving. And I usually send little audio messages to friends back and forth. I'm not doing client work, but it just gives me like that little bit of time. And then by that time I have my breakfast and kind of get on with my day. So my morning routine, it's very personal. There's kind of been a lot of like ebbs and flows and being like, oh, maybe this works, maybe this doesn't work, and
Mhm.
trial and error. But right now it's what works for me.
I love that so much. That last piece, especially about how it ebbs and flows. Like I can look back on my very first morning routine when I was like getting into doing the morning routines and all excited. Dude, I would spend way too much time on it. And I would get to the point where I was annoyed if something interrupted it. And I realized I was actually having a negative impact on my life. Where then I started to progress in my thinking, and I was like, what does Celeste need right now that's also going to benefit her for her future goals and dreams and the objectives on today's list? And then I started to structure my mornings according to that. And sometimes I would be like, I'm like, I don't want to commit to a morning routine, but I know I'm going to have time for myself in the morning before anything. And so I think you kind of have to experiment with it to find what makes you feel your best, especially because for some people, what they need to do in the morning is get straight on their emails, because that's when they have the best focus. And so they just knock it out. And other people are like, I can't even think before I've taken my shower, done my skincare, read a devotional, or called a friend, So you kind of just find what works for you. But you had mentioned earlier, this wasn't always your way of living. Like this wasn't how you were raised. And actually in the past, you were a party animal. And now, you're a business owner, multiple coaches, you're living in the other country, you're married, you're doing your thing, and you're a pro, you're a professional athlete. So how did you envision your life when you were 18 compared to what you've actually made of it?
Oh my gosh. When I was 18, all I wanted to do was party. I didn't even have like this whole, even if you told me this is what I would be doing, like if you told me this 10 years ago, I'd be like, no, this is
Yeah.
absolutely crazy. So when I was 18, that's what, like 15 years, just over 15 years ago. Um, I was a graphic designer. I loved doing design and I was working for sports teams and I was just having so much fun. I've never been able to like foresee myself in like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I've
Hmm.
never been able to have that vision, which I always find so weird. But now I find it really exciting because I'm like, I don't have these like expectations. Like I don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen next month like when I like I have my pro debut, right? I don't How can I predict that when I don't know like what's going to happen in 5 years? So how I always like envisioned myself, I don't know. And that's, I think, one thing when I started traveling and then came to Mexico, I realized not really like, yes, how short life is, but how amazing opportunities can be and leaning into new things and being like, let's find out, or let's go this direction, or let's try this. And it's things I never thought of instead of that's not my plan.
Yeah.
That's not what I want in 5 years from now because like you don't know what's gonna happen. So I don't know, I'm just open. I'm not just like I wouldn't call myself a free spirit, but I feel like I am very logical with my thinking and reasoning and why I do things. But at the same point, I'm very open to
Yeah.
say, why not? Or why not me? Why can't I try this? Let's get married and see what happens. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I never 18-year-old me. Oh yeah, she was a party animal. She did not envision any of this, but I bet she would have loved this.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. Like I I think that there's a lot of beauty in that, like being open. Actually, my dad raised me on this idea of always being ready to pivot. And he was like, have plans, have goals, have aspirations, work hard towards something. But you never know when you get an opportunity that could change your life. And if you aren't willing to see it, you could miss out on something that's really meant for you, or going to accelerate something. And then I learned from a mentor throughout my life, okay, it's not about what you want necessarily, and it's not about how you get there. It's just about focusing on your values, on your commitment, living each day, doing the best you can. And the rest really does take care of itself, especially when you have faith, or you believe that and you know it's going to happen. And I think it's really cool that you had this evolution. And with an evolution like that, you must have had a lot of personal experiences. And in the intro, I talked about how you came from disordered eating and you also were a power lifter, and then that transitioned to physique sport. So, and this is a good opportunity actually to talk about the relationship aspect, because you did mention your husband is so supportive of this, which is super, super cool. But I know that in the past, you've been in a toxic relationship that wasn't beneficial. So, what was going on, and how did you ultimately come out of that to be able to find love and trust and actually commit to marriage?
Oh, some days I still don't even know. Some days I'm like, what am I doing? But like in such a good way, it just seems like almost surreal. There was again, like I grew up in a very small community and my parents were very safe. Like they raised me amazing. I'm very, very grateful for them. But just how you were saying that if you focus so hard on something, you can almost like lose sight of like other opportunities. I do feel like if I look back at certain points in my life, there were some things that I wanted to do, and my parents, because they didn't know any better, they were like, it doesn't seem right. It's not a gut feeling. It's not a secure job. Like, don't do that. So there was not really a lot of resistance, and that didn't necessarily cause me to rebel. But because I was very like structured and follow the rules and like stay small and don't speak if you're not spoken to, that kind of stuff. When I was in more so this one very specific toxic relationship, I almost in a way felt like looking back how toxic it was, that there was almost like brainwashing to like some extent. Like I was very, very heavily influenced and I didn't realize it. There were some amazing things that did come from that relationship. My passion to get into being a personal trainer. And I don't think I would be here today if that didn't happen. And also I found my faith again through that relationship. So as toxic as it was, I do feel like that was a necessary like turning point in my life. And then from there, once I realized like how to actually get out of that relationship, I committed so hard into like me. I was like, nobody is coming in front of me. Nobody is going to tell me what to do. Nobody is going to overpower me or make me feel a certain way. So, quick little context, before I came to Mexico, I spent 7 weeks in the Dominican Republic. And that was going to be kind of like my intentions for all of that was my relationship at the time was ending. I didn't necessarily have to be in Canada. I hated the cold weather. I got seasonal depression so bad from it. I'm like, I love traveling. I love hot places. I want to go somewhere for an extended period of time. I went to Dominican. The point was to come to Mexico, kind of hop back and forth from Canada, and then like just travel a little bit while being like a nomad with my business. And then I could still power lift because it's kind of like an easy training thing that's in a lot of countries. When I was in Dominican, I was in such a secluded place. I truly felt like I did not talk to anybody other than clients, and I focused on growing my business for 7 weeks. 5 weeks, sorry, 5 weeks. And that was the most powerful time because the only person I had was myself. And I remember reading the book, The Power of Now, during that time. And it's like, you're not like, I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. And learning how to be okay with myself first and foremost, and being so incredibly independent and doing things on my own, and finally moving to Mexico by myself and being like, I can do this. Like, I know I can. Yes, there is my parents and like there is safety if for some reason something happens, but I can do this. I'm going to prove to myself that I can do this. And just from that confidence that I ended up building from myself, that is more so like how I became okay in being in a relationship. And my husband, Christian, how incredibly supportive he is, and getting married. He takes care of me so much, but the best thing about him is that he respects my independency so much. And he knows like I work from home, and he usually works from home as well. And he knows that if my door's closed in the office, like, you don't disturb me. I am doing my thing. And he's like, she will come out when she's ready. And like, we have like our spaces and our boundaries. And that, I think, is one of the most important things in our relationship, especially with the cultural difference. Is it was really difficult for me when I moved here to have people here understand what I do. And they're like, oh, you own your business, you can work whenever, like, take the day off, come to the beach. And like, I get that lifestyle here, but I was like, I can't do that. Like, I still need to grow my business. I didn't just want to keep it what it was. I wanted to grow from it. So having him understand, because he's an entrepreneur, he understands that we do have to have boundaries, but our businesses kind of need to be number one. So learning what I didn't deserve and knowing that I can deserve better, and then putting myself first and being so incredibly independent with myself and figuring things out as I go without relying on other people has helped me to move here, to grow my business, to be a competitor, to be a wife, and to transition to being a pro as well.
That's really beautiful. I think, yeah, that's beautiful. That journey from not being in a supportive relationship, or really truly being able to be yourself or know yourself or act the way you want to then being able to embrace that solitude while growing in a way that you are inspired to grow, and then letting that reopen your mind and your heart to the love that you did deserve and do deserve and have continued to grow in. And you said he's an entrepreneur as well. So what does he do?
He more or less owns a yacht rental company, but he does.
Oh, you did mention that. So that, I didn't know if that was a job at the time. Okay, yeah. So he owns that.
Yeah, so he does all like the concierge, and he does like helicopters and jets and yachts and like all the fancy things. So that's why, like, whenever you're on my Instagram and you see like me on a yacht day or me on a sea-doo or things like that, it's always through him, which is, it's so fun. Cool. But he's always on his phone, and he's always like making deals and talking to clients and stuff like that. So it's a very different kind of entrepreneur business, but he understands like we need to be on our phones. So we do have those boundaries, like even within our relationship, we're like, you know what, if we're out for dinner, the phones go down. Like, yes, we can post on our Instagram or whatever, but like no clients.
I love that. It's important to be able to have those conversations with your significant other, especially when you're both passionate, driven, ambitious, because it's easy to let business really get in between, I think, the relationship development, because you're so excited about it and you also want to support each other. So actually opening up that conversation to be like, hey, I think it would be more beneficial if we have days where we aren't doing this, like where we aren't also distracted by this. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean I don't support you. It just means I need that undistracted time.
Yeah, it almost seems like silly from an outside perspective, but we schedule time together. And it
Yeah.
should be natural because like we live together, but if we don't plan it, we're busy doing other things. And like, like if I have a day off or if I have an afternoon off, I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to go, and especially because I'm independent, I'm going to figure out other things to do and not being like, oh, is he coming home? Are we going to do something? So it's like, okay, right now we have Sunday night movie nights, and that is like our time together. And like, I don't care what you do the other 6.5 days in the week. I just want like 2 hours on Sunday afternoons or Sunday nights. That's it. So
Wow. I think I would need more time than that personally.
we do see each other like throughout the days and stuff, but that's kind of because usually we do Saturday night dinners. But because I'm in up right now and like we had to cut those out, I'm like, okay, I still want to make sure that we're still committing a little bit of time together. He's running all over the place, like always, like driving to meet new customers and going to this boat and this boat and this boat. I'm like, you do your own thing. And because I wake up so early, he's working later. So we do have not opposite schedules, but there is like a big shift in differences. So he comes home and he's eating dinner and I'm already in bed.
Yeah,
So
totally.
we do just make sure that we can like overlap time together.
That's beautiful. It's nice that you guys have been able to find your groove together to support the relationship and actually be able to pursue each other's dreams, but also still be with each other and growing together. So I want to kind of switch gears into your life as a coach as well, and then we'll get into your journey as a competitor. But something I'd like to know is how you keep your business passion separate from your passion for competing.
It was really hard at the beginning. But I think the overarching concept is I love that I have such a broad spectrum in that I can see the extreme of what competing requires. And like one of my honest pet peeves is when clients are like, well, I'm not competing, so I don't have to be this strict with my nutrition. I'm like, I never asked you to compete. Like, why you're comparing yourself to me, I have no idea, but we're not here for that. But it shows me and being like, yes, we can go harder and we can go more extreme and we can cut your calories and push your cardio up and do all of that. But I can tell you firsthand that is not sustainable. And with your lifestyle, it's not going to work. So I really like that I have like the spectrum of experience and lifestyle. Like that's where I came from. Even when I was focusing on powerlifting, I still did flexible dieting. I still tracked my macros, but I had such a good balance with it. And it was like an actual like sustainable for most people kind of balance, not a competitor balance. So being able to like go out, and I use so much of my traveling experience as learning tools for clients and being like, this is how I go out and track my nutrition if I want to go get tacos or do something. And like, it's not that I have to go track, but I can, and how we can pivot. And I just feel like the lifestyle element is so much more enjoyable and realistic for people instead of coaching them and being like, well, just because I'm a competitor doesn't mean you have to do extremes like I do. And everybody's different. Shit, if I could look like the way I do as a competitor and do all the lifestyle things and not have to worry about everything, I would do that.
Right?
But right now,
Not
like I can't do
reality.
that. So I like that I can show clients perspectives, and I know I have to be careful in how much I share as a competitor because I know that it is an influence, but I also feel, and this is something I talk about a lot, is I feel like I do have a social responsibility to kind of uphold because I'm not just a competitor, but I have like the coaching awareness. So even though I don't train clients for prep, I understand the approaches and why we do things. And I know the science. And if it came down to it and someone was like, I will pay you $10,000 to prep someone, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Like I could do it if I had to, but I prefer not to, because there are people that are much more qualified and educated and validated to be able to do that. So I know my boundaries and I know my lane. Oh my gosh, what were we talking about? Where was
Business passions and competing passions separate.
No, it totally went. Hopefully I can come back to
That's
it.
okay. I'll share something and maybe it'll jog your memory of where you were going. Yeah, but like I can personally say I can relate to that. I think there's a lot of value in having a broad spectrum of experiences, because I went through the lifestyle into the first time competitor who became jaded and then took personal responsibility and then committed to psychology and clinical mental health counseling, but loved training and nutrition before and realized that's not the path for me. And there's people who are better suited in coaching that, whereas I love the mentality. And then working in a counseling office and understanding a broad spectrum of mental health related concerns and disorders and issues, and being able to meet clients where they're at, but also know where, hey, I'm not the best person for this job, or hey, I think you should consider this route. And you brought up a good point that actually took me back to when I was a personal trainer, online coach. I felt like, gosh, I preach lifestyle and flexibility to these people, but I'm over here living like more extreme strict because I love to compete. And I think people have sometimes a twisted idea of competing too, where it's super strict, it's not fun, you can't enjoy yourself, but you can. But it's different. You specifically said there's lifestyle balance and there's competitor balance. So paint that picture for us. When you said that, what did that mean to you?
The lifestyle balance and the competitor balance. Like, yeah, there is no, the reality is there isn't a balance when it comes to competing. Like, it is extreme. I've found the balance that works for me at this point in time, but my balance now was not balanced last year or last season, right? So it's always changing. But I feel competitor balance for me right now is great if I'm in a little bubble. If everything is perfect and routine and the world doesn't change and my husband never gets like, not jealous, but like upset that we don't spend time together and don't do social things, I have a great balance right now. But that is not my lifestyle. There's still other things to account for. I usually cancel all plans. I don't hang out with friends when I compete, like when I'm getting more focused, because I'm like, just the traffic here is wild and crazy. And like, you could go out for a 15-minute coffee and it could take like 3 hours. And I'm like, sometimes I just can't commit to that. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I just like close everything off. Being a wife to my husband, and more so like how he knew me before, we can't go out and like just go out for dinner or do something. Like next week we have our anniversary and he's like, what do you want to do? Like, let's go to a hotel for a few nights. I'm like 1 month out of prep, or like out of my like pro debut. I can't just go out to a hotel and do that. So yesterday he actually like emailed me photos and videos of a resort, because he's like, I think this is one of the best gyms. So I'm like, I need the good food, like, or I'll just bring my own food. But I'm like, that's not lifestyle balance. Like, I can't just go out and enjoy. And like, we have such like this beautiful backyard here. I want to be able to like go out and do things and like go on adventures and go out on the yacht for a day. Like, I can't do that right now, because I'm like, what happens if we don't get back in time? Or what happens if the food I think is going to be available isn't available? And like, I have to do my cardio and I have to train and stuff. And like, so yes, right now I do have a balance, but it's not sustainable. And I like that I can show clients that, because I'm like, yeah, you can do this and it's great and you look amazing on stage. But what about the rest of your life? And what about your family? And what about your job? And just because I can do this doesn't mean that you can either. And that's not saying that I'm better than somebody or on a pedestal. It's like, this is my lifestyle. And I've spent 7, 8, 10 years building this so that it is sustainable, so that I do have like the structure in place so that I can do the things I'm currently doing. But most people can't do that. It's not realistic.
Exactly. And that's just the truth of the matter. And it's not the same for everyone, for sure. Like, it can look different or it can be explored different. Circumstances make a difference. Location makes a difference. But when you're willing to do a show or commit to that, you have to also be willing to do what's necessary to get ready if you're trying to actually be competitive anyways. And it's not, and maybe it looks easy sometimes from the outside looking in because you make it look easy, you enjoy it, you love it. But in reality, like, I think a competitor's mind, even though we choose it, we're still thinking like, wow, I can't just go on vacation anymore. It's like you're going, but what are we eating? Am I going to track? Am I not going to track? Am I in prep right now or am I in improvement season? Like, what makes sense to do? And you said you wouldn't, or you don't generally coach competitors. You don't choose to, you don't want to. However, you did launch a pre-prep program. So what is that in comparison to like a lifestyle client?
That I haven't, like, I've kind of like done a soft launch, but I've been so busy. I'm like, I need to actually like launch this later on. So basically it is like how, and I actually talked to my current coach about it because I'm like, would this be something that would benefit you? And then I can kind of transition them in. So for example, one of my current coaches on my team, Kayla, she was one of my lifestyle clients. She ended up being one of my coaches. And then she's like, I want to do a bikini competition because she saw me doing it. And I was like, well, listen, I think there are some things that you need to do beforehand. Like, I would never just want to say, yes, go ahead and do that. If I have the ability to like help her see some things that I learned during prep. And of course, like, my experiences with prep are only my experiences, right? Like, I only know what I know. I don't know all of the situations or all of the scenarios that could play out. But I'm like, we need to like reel things in, and we need to establish kind of like not more extreme habits, but much more rigid habits, and showing up on the days that you don't want to, because that's going to happen in prep, and being more strict on your nutrition instead of being super flexible with your diet and things like that. So what I did with her is we kind of did like a couple like weeks and phases of kind of going through like almost extremes, I guess, but with a flexible approach to it, and being like, okay, you need to, in the morning, get 5,000 steps every morning. So I took basically her current lifestyle and just put it into a more structured approach, and being like, let's do this for 6 weeks. We'll kind of diet you down a little bit so you can kind of get those feels as well. And basically, the pre-prep coaching is like a glorified version of that. It's like, let's lock in all of these habits and skills and boundaries in place before you just jump into competing. Because I think, and you can see this, and I'm sure a lot of competitors, especially pros, see this, like, you go into your first competition and you have no idea what's going on. Like, there are so many things that we wish we knew before going into any kind of competition, any kind of prep, and being like, man, if I had somebody like giving me a heads up, this would be really nice. So the pre-prep coaching, it's still very similar to the coaching that I do with our clients, but to a more, I guess, almost an extreme level without it actually being prep. So that the anticipation is they finish, and I want this to be like a 6-month program, is when they finish that, it's almost like a smooth transition. So it's like that stepping stone from lifestyle to prep, not like that on off switch. So that when they go into prep, they're like, oh, I already know how to do this. Like, I don't need to resist. This is kind of easy for me, because everybody wants that first competition to go well. So if I can like be an impact and help them, that's what I wanted to do. So I did that with Kayla. She loved it. I asked her about it, and she actually helps me coach it. And she said it was like, she is so grateful that we had that experience. And I did that with one of my other clients as well before she started competing, and she found immense value in that.
I love that idea. I think that's very important to have like pre-preps and practice runs, because you got to see if you even like it, I think. And also to commit to going all the way. If you can't even make it 50%, 60%, 70%, you're not ready. And sometimes you need to do a little prep, realize you're not where you need to be, and reverse and improve. And then you've at least built some confidence that you can commit to it. But you said that you need to know certain things that, or there's things you wish you would have known. And you had shared in a post about how you personally progressively had placed worse from your first show on, but you kept learning, you persevered, and eventually you improved. And now, of course, you're a pro. So what are some things you had to learn that maybe the first time competitor version of yourself didn't know or realize?
Well, the first Courtney competitor was, she thought this was so easy. And then and I really respect how my coach approached it, because he wanted to make sure and I saw this after the fact, he wanted to make sure that I really enjoyed that first experience, that I had fun, that he wasn't going to like be hard on me. And he would only push me. And this is one of the things I love about him. He only pushes me to what my capabilities are. Yes, he still pushes me and he's like, we're going to go harder. We're going to do this. But he knows kind of where my tipping point is and what I am capable of. So I'm very, very grateful for him. So when I first competed, there was a lot of resistance with like protocols. I'm like, yeah, I want to get jacked. I want to go through this bulking phase, but then all of a sudden my digestion's off and I'm like, oh, I can't do this. Like I can't increase my calories and stuff. In 2021, when I started, I basically consider that like my all in. And I had asked him before we started the season, I was like, what is my weakness? Like, what is the one thing that I need to do that is like holding me back? And he's like, you need to stop bouncing back and forth between powerlifting and bodybuilding and go all in on this. He's like, you need to grow as a bodybuilder and your powerlifting does not support that. And that was like one of the hardest things I ever had to hear, because to this day, I still truly love powerlifting. But I needed to hear that. And then at that point, I was like, I need to go all in. There was a lot of resistance with a lot of protocols. I wanted to gain weight, but only a little bit of weight until the point where I got uncomfortable. And that's usually when we all kind of like, we're like, oh, like, I don't want to see that number. And it bothers us. But knowing that there is a bigger picture and that's part of the process. I wish I knew how to better deal with stress management. My inner critic, just being smarter with protocols and being more organized and structured. And like I totally believe how you do one thing is how you do everything. I feel like it's a very like polarizing topic and people are like, no, that's like completely the opposite, but that's how I feel like. And for me, I need to, when I'm on my nutrition, I needed to be 100% on my nutrition. When I'm in my training, I need to be 100% into my training. And if I'm going to go all in on bodybuilding, I need to go in on every single point. So not being, I'm just going to be a baddie in the gym for like 2 hours a day and then that's it. And then kind of lollygag when it comes to the kitchen, or not really focus on my sleep. So all these little things I've accumulated over the years. And again, like finding the ebbs and flows and being like, how strict do I need to be on my sleep schedule? Like, how much does that actually impact me? And because I'm so meticulous with my details, I've been able to like assess not really biofeedback, but the responses that everything has on it. So yeah, my younger self wishes I had somebody, and my coach and his wife, who's my opposing coach, they've both been like phenomenal and they've helped me with my mindset and everything. But there are just some things that you kind of need to learn from a more personal approach and not from a coaching approach, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So being able to have like a more smooth transition, again, going back to the pre-prep coaching, like a little bit more of like a lead way, or getting into, okay, these are your lifestyle habits that are in place. Now we need to like amplify these. And I didn't really have that guidance on how to make that transition, which now, like looking back at it, I think it's just really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it helps you to like mentally prepare yourself that way. And you brought up how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I'm curious what you think some of the more underrated components of nutrition or training or performance or recovery are that competitors could utilize and actually improve those areas.
If there's like, if we're going to talk in like certain areas, like nutrition, the power of consistency, but actually loving the food that you're eating. Anybody can do a diet, anybody can like eat the food, but like I had somebody ask me yesterday, like, what do you eat after you compete? I'm like, I just want to have like a nice steak and go to bed and shower. Like that's it. Like yes, I miss tacos because I truly love them, but like I love all of my meals. Even when I'm deep in prep, I love everything that I eat. And being able to find the combinations that work, I think is really powerful, because a lot of us will just follow a plan and being like, well, it's chicken and rice again and like whatever. And yes, it's easy because you don't have to think about it. But when you can really like those meals and look forward to having them and really treat those as kind of like not treats or like, but fun, enjoyable experiences throughout the day, for me, it just makes things so much easier. Like I get so excited 5 times a day to eat because
Yeah.
like I just love like that moment and that experience. And I'm really aware and attentive to those. When it comes to training, I think a lot of people overlook the power of intensity. One thing that I've really tapped into, and this is like me having a powerlifting background, which I'm very, very grateful for, is knowing how hard I can push myself. Over the last 8 weeks, I've leaned so hard into improving in my training volume every single session. I know at some point, which I'm kind of at like this week, is that like that's going to crash and I'm going to hit a wall. But I'm kind of doing this, it's called like a shotgun approach, where it's basically like just hit the muscle, like just friggin' go for it. And for it's like, I like to say forcing the growth, because yes, form can break down. And as bodybuilders, it's not about hitting PRs and not about pushing heavier, but at some point it is. We need to build muscle, and we're not going to build muscle if we're like, oh, that was hard, but I'm okay. And I can just go on Instagram for my rest period. Like, you don't need to be dying and like crawling out of the gym, but you need to be pushing yourself. And that's something that I think a lot of people overlook. They think that the training, it's like, oh, well, I stimulated the muscle, I got a good pump, like I'm good. It's like, no, you still need to grow. Like even the bikini competitions, like we need to have a good amount of muscle mass on there.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people still, even as competitors, underappreciate or undervalue sleep and recovery and slowing down. I make sure that like I have my boundaries. I go to bed at a certain time. I have other self-care, I'm going to say stress management protocols. Like I have access to a sauna. I make sure that I spend a little bit of time in the sun, just for like 15 minutes, laying out there without my phone, without anything, like just chill out. Things like that I think are really important. I have my like protocols that work for me. So I have like my stretching, I have my yoga wheel, I have my foam roller, stuff like that. I have all those tools that I cycle through all the time. And I think that stuff's really, really important that a lot of us overlook. Not just, oh, I'm going to do more mobility when it's more important or when I'm starting to feel sore, but making those things habits. And it's not just for competitions, it's just for life. We get older, we're women, we're going through menopause, we're getting osteoporosis. Like we need to be doing these preventative things. And like I'm 35, I don't like admitting that I'm getting old. Like I still feel like I'm 20 sometimes, but we need to start doing more preventative measures. And a lot of these things add up outside of competing as well.
Love that. That's all really insightful and good feedback, because I think it's overlooked, or we just kind of go in autopilot mode or forget the big picture. So since you have a lot of education and a lot of background yourself, do you ever apply any of that? Is that kind of what inspired you to start incorporating those things, or do you incorporate anything from that education to help you in those processes?
Yeah, a lot of the learning that I've done is it's more generalized, like more lifestyle stuff. But again, what I like is like my spectrum of experience, because I have my powerlifting background and I know what a 1 rep max is. Like I have felt that many times. I have failed many times. So I know how to push myself, and I know how I in a way, like I, not that I pep talk myself, but I almost shit talk myself and being like, I can do this. Like, get your shit together. Like, and then I'll start like swearing at myself and be like, you piece of shit, like just friggin' go. But I do it in like an encouraging way. And that really helps me with my training and really push, and just looking back and being like, I've done so many other hard things. Like I can do this as well. And I like that I can apply some of that within reason to my clients as well. For example, I can see some of their exercise videos and they'll say it's like an intensity of like an RPE 9 or like 90% effort. I'm like, that is not 90% effort. Like you can push harder. So I help clients see their own limitations. And I'm like, I challenge you to do 5 more reps next week. And they do it like it's nothing. And I'm like, okay, see, we can do more.
Yeah.
So again, like I've learned a lot of the education I've learned, I've applied to myself more so as like a power lifter, but also lifestyle. And then as that's transitioned into being a bodybuilder, it's helped me again see this broad spectrum of all of these tools. Like I feel like I have such a big toolbox of information and tools that we can apply to clients and being like, okay, well, maybe this is appropriate, or this is appropriate, or at this time, this is appropriate. So yeah, I feel like the education and the experiences that I've learned, I've been able to apply in different times and different situations that are appropriate.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable to have those personal and professional experiences to support yourself and others and have more of an objective perspective or learn more about what you're capable of. Now, let's talk about what's coming up here in 6 weeks, because as we're recording this episode's actually going to come out, I think, a couple days after you made your pro debut or the same week. So what are you doing to get ready? What's been the focus since you got your pro card?
Oh my gosh, I still need to grow into bikini, which is like wild. So I had mentioned to you that I was like 110 when I won. Like I was conditioned. It was great. But I was also like very, very small. So I'm like, okay, I need to grow. So I am 13 pounds heavier, and I don't think we're going to be dieting down like that much. So me just getting into like this mindset that I'm like, I'm probably going to weigh the heaviest I've ever weighed stepping onto a stage, which makes me obviously feel hesitant and be like, but I'm not conditioned.
Right.
Like I'm not there, right? Like there's been a lot of self-doubt and talking to my coaches about it. And they come back and they're like, if you don't think you're ready, let's not force this. Like there's plenty of other times you can do a pro debut. We don't have to do this one. And then I come back and I tell myself, I'm like, my coaches wouldn't encourage this if they didn't think I was capable of doing it, right? Like that's also a hit on them. That makes them look bad if I show up on stage looking like garbage.
Yeah.
And I also, like, I tell myself, I'm like, I deserve this. And I kind of give myself like little mantras every time I eat a meal. I do almost like a little prayer. And I did this before my pro debut. And I feel like that really helped me stay grounded. And before my winning my pro card, it was like 2 months beforehand. Every time I ate a meal, I would like close my eyes and say thank you. And then I was like, thank you for my pro card on December 11th. And I said that 5 times a day, every day for like months on end. And I totally believe in like manifestation, lucky girl syndrome, like whatever you want to call that. And I continue to tell myself that now, like I deserve to be a pro. I deserve to step on that stage and have that opportunity. I can do this. I can do hard things. I'm capable of this. And I want to do this. So just getting into that right mindset. I've worked so hard on envisioning being a pro. And now that I'm here, I'm like, oh, like I'm here. Like this is a little bit different than what I thought it would be. So just continuing to show up, trusting the feedback and trusting the progress that we are making, and just getting ready because we're going international. We're going back to Canada. We're going to Toronto, and I haven't been there since 2019. So it's been a while. So I'm going back to my hometown to do my pro debut. And it's just all of that is like so exciting and overwhelming. So really just trying to get into the mindset and stay as stress-free as possible throughout all of it.
I love that. That's so important. And I think it's great how you're able to see like I'm heavier, but that doesn't mean that I'm not where I need to be. Like the association in the past was I'm 110 pounds, I'm conditioned, I won my pro card, therefore I need to be more conditioned. But the feedback was also you need to be bigger, you need to fit the criteria in this way, put on more size. So now you've done that and your weight being up, I think, like you said, your coaches are people you trust. The other thing too is I've seen this with different pros. Sometimes the judge likes this pro leaner and this pro fuller, and it looks like they both meet the criteria, but for that person's physique that's required. So I think it'll be really cool and valuable to prove to yourself you can step on stage at that weight and get feedback and then see what is going to benefit you.
I'm being very realistic. Like this is a whole new world. Like I'm tapping into not even just competing at the pro level, but competing in a different country. We know that standards are very, very different. And even from Canada to USA, the standards of what a pro looks like is very, very different. So I'm taking this opportunity. It's a learning experience. I have no idea how I'm going to look versus everybody else. I could be standing beside Ashley Kay for all I know and being like, like what, so we already have like a second show planned for later this year. So the first one, even though like, yes, I do have expectations, I would very much like to not come in last place. That
Yeah.
is my goal, to like not, I don't want to be in last call outs.
Yeah.
But I have no idea how many people are going to show up. So that could be very like misleading. But I want to make sure that I am there. I did my best to get there and I deserve to be there and I look that part. Aside from that, I want to take the feedback. That's what I'm there for. I'm there for the feedback so that the next show I can be better and then see, like, I might do my pro debut and do a hell of a lot better than I thought I would. Or I could be like, my coaches could be like, you need 2 years of off season. And if that's the case, then that's the case. So
Yeah.
I'm just approaching this first pro debut. Yes, I have expectations. Yes, I would like to be amazing, but it's also a huge, huge new world that I need to get my grounds on.
That's super cool. I also think what you're sharing is beneficial for people to hear because you're showing how you can still have doubts, fears, concerns, but if you equip yourself with uh tools to cope with those things, whether that's words of affirmation or proof that you're capable or what you can trust and the big vision, I think that you can get through those things. So if you experience those types of thoughts, don't be discouraged. Instead, come up with solutions to address them, which you've been able to do for yourself. And now it's like, cool, let's see what happens, which is gonna be super awesome. And it's very exciting. Like you did earn this, and you did mention manifesting is something you believe in. So let's talk about what you said at the very beginning, which is the Confessions of Bikini Pro podcast and being on here. So what was that reference or story?
Okay. So I found when I actually wrote this down. So your podcasts have gotten me through everything from the first competitions I was doing to fasted cardio, laying in the sauna just before competitions, trying to like downregulate stress and everything. Like I've listened to like everything.
Oh,
So I wrote this down on my notes and I was like, I'm going to make a TikTok about this.
yes.
So silly. And I never did it, but this is so much better. But I wrote down like Confessions of a Bikini Amateur. And I was like, I'm going to answer my own questions that Celeste would ask me, but from an amateur level.
Yes. I love that.
This was August 2022. So this was before I did my first show last year. So I only had written down like first thing I do before my heel hits the stage, a quote that keeps me going, and what's my why and why do I compete. So I
Yeah.
have those, but I have like the updated versions of them.
Oh, can we hear?
Yes, but you have to officially ask me them.
Okay. So, let's go with the quote one. That one sparked interest in me.
The quote that keeps me going. So right now it's I can, I will, I want to do this and I'm capable. I deserve to be here. And then I also always tell them every single day, chop wood, carry water. If it's a book called Chop Wood, Carry Water. And it is, I think it's one of the most powerful books. I listened to it on an audio, like an audiobook version. It's basically like the short version is it's not about the end goal. It's about all the habits and the processes that you have to do along the way. So the story is this guy wants to be like a samurai master, but every day for 10 years he needs to chop wood and carry water. And he's like, but I just want to be this master. We just want to be a pro. We just want to win our card. We just want to be on stage. But there are so many things that we need to do every single day that is so much more important than that one thing. So every day I'm like, what's in my control? What do I need to do? Chop wood, carry water. That is my training. That's my morning routine. That's my nutrition. That's all my meals, all of that.
Beautiful. And what was it before?
The quote that keeps me going, I used to say, remember who you are and level up. And I still believe in that. It's like, still remember like who I am. I'm still Courtney. I'm still a normal person, but I'm capable of so much more than just being little old me.
Yes, I love that. Okay. And then there was another, what was the other?
First thing I do before my first,
Yes.
first thing I do before
Yeah, we'll go to that one. What was your old answer?
It was just like, let's go. And now it's like, this is my time. I deserve to be here. Let's have fun. Or I'll be like, the judges are waiting for me. They call my name. They're waiting for me.
Beautiful. And then the last question.
What is my why and why do I compete? So
oh, this is great. I'm excited to hear the difference.
Yes. So I think it's all the same because this was still like my mindset last year. And I've definitely found more so with coaching is I've definitely found my help, or my calling to help others. And I still really get overwhelmed, as I had mentioned, like how much I can impact people. And my why, it's like about making this world a better place. And if I can do that through strength training and mindset and like empowerment, I totally love it. So I definitely feel like helping others through all of this, through lifestyle, through competing, that stuff. I'm very, very passionate about it. And why do I compete? Because it really drives me to be a better person. I strive on structure, habits, outcomes, and challenges, which I'm sure we've learned by now over the last like hour. And it's the more I do it, it's like this snowball effect. I'm like, oh, I did that. What else can I do? What else can I do? Like, I didn't think I would actually get my pro card, and now I'm like, yo, let's see what's next. Like, let's just
Yes.
go for it. So it definitely drives me to be a better person.
Oh, I love that. And clearly it has brought that for you too. And it makes me so happy as well that you listen to this podcast throughout your journey. Because when I hear that, I'm like, this is why I do this. It's because I want people to, I want you to have your story, have a light shine on it, right? And then have that impact other people in their journey and inspire others. And I get messages from amateurs who listen and they're like, my goal, like my dream board had, my vision board has being on this show. Like I'm inspired. I want to do that. I want to be a guest because I think, well, I know my podcast was the first of its kind in the industry. So it really like sparked this like fire. But I think what I pride myself on with it is that we can all relate, we can connect, and it gives people an opportunity to tell a story and show that every story is different. It's unique. It's a beautiful journey we get to go on. And everyone's why is different, or reasoning for this is different, or approach can be different, which shows us that so much is possible and you can really take it your way and have it be your experience.
Yeah, honestly, every episode I've listened to, there has been some kind of golden nugget in that. Either it's one of those like, oh, I needed to hear that, or like a switch that goes off that challenges me to do something else, or to realize, yeah, everybody has their own journey. I feel like I'm very late to this game of all of this, but everything that I've done up until this point has led me to exactly where I am. And I love saying this is don't wish you aren't where you are. And I'm here for a reason. So I'm like, I needed to build my business and to go to another country and to go through powerlifting and body dysmorphia. And like, I needed to go through all of that before I could become a pro.
I love that. I'm writing that down.
Don't
Don't wish you aren't where you are. That is really cool. That encourages a lot of thought actually, because I'm like, okay, there's people who like there's a version of you that once wanted to be here. Also, by wishing you're not where you are, you're missing out on a lot of what could come from this moment.
Yeah.
And then you can make this moment what you want it to be.
Yeah, the first time I heard that quote, it was from a friend, and this was like 5 years ago or something. And she was actually an IFBB pro. And she had said that to me because I ended up going back home in Canada and I didn't want to be there. I'm like, I just wanted to go and see family and like to get back. And she's like, don't wish you aren't where you are. Like, you need to be there, be present, and not be focused on the present, because things happen for a reason. And there's a lot of great things in front of us that we often get distracted by because we're looking at something else or the next thing. And it's like, you need to be here before you can get there. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for bestowing that on us. Now I'm going to ask you for your best advice, although you've given a lot of great insight. So what is your best advice for someone who's never competed before but wants to? And then your best advice for someone on their road to pro?
Someone who's never competed before that wants to should do my pre-prep coaching.
There you go. There you have it.
I think not even that, but make sure you're able to level up your habits. And if there is something that you know is a weak link, focus on that. If you know you don't have a good relationship with nutrition, anything right now is going to be amplified. I really believe in prep, whether like there's a little struggle and you're like, oh, that's not a big deal. Like, it will be a big deal in prep. So you need to get good at all of those things. And if you don't know how to do it, that's why, and I'm not trying to plug, but like, that's why I wanted to do that pre-prep coaching, because it's like, let's take care of all this shitty stuff before it actually becomes a problem.
Yes.
Like, let's do that. And on the road to becoming pro, it's like, believe that you're already there. Me manifesting that and just saying thank you for the pro card. I think there's a lot of power in manifestations, instead of saying like, please give me the strength to become a pro, or please give me the opportunity. Take it, like, take it. And that's not being selfish or greedy. It's being confident and being certain that you deserve that. And I think anything is within our reach, no matter how wild it might seem. But if you're on the way to becoming a pro, believe that your time will come and the work that you put in will be recognized.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Oh my gosh, you're so cute. That's awesome. I love your smile, by the way. Yeah, you're welcome. So how can people connect with you, find you, follow your journey, and even inquire about working with you?
I am all over Instagram. That's like my main thing. Courtney For Life with an underscore. So my first name, Courtney, Forlife, because that's way easier than spelling my last name. That is mostly lifestyle stuff. I have like my coaching link in there as well. My website is courtneyforlife.com. And then I'm on TikTok, not like super crazy amounts, but that is where I do all of my competition related stuff. So I tried to keep that like a little bit separate instead of on Instagram, just because I didn't want to like get that mix in there, like the conflicts. So TikTok is my competition stuff. I also have my own podcast that's just more smaller chats, Courtney For Life. You can find those. And then I have like YouTube, but everything is through my Instagram. You can find it all there through the links, Courtney For Life with an underscore.
Awesome. Yes, and I'll put all that in the show notes. I won't. My assistant will put it all in the show notes. I always feel bad when I say that. I'm like, we all know it's not me anymore. So she'll put all of that in the show notes page. You guys, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you are listening right away, that'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section. It is alphabetized. You'll be able to find everything there. Not just the links mentioned, but we do full episode timestamps, a summary of the episode, as well as a bulleted list of topics covered. So not only can you go back and listen to the episode and the parts that you really enjoyed or need to hear again, you can also share this with friends, teammates, family, and let them know what they can expect from the episode too, and get them excited. Of course, that means a lot to the athletes. It means a lot to me, especially when you guys share it on your story and tag us. Let us know you're listening or what your takeaway was. It's super cool for all of us. So thank you guys for listening. And Courtney, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Celeste. This was totally a bucket list thing that I just get to check off. So thank you immensely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, of course. I'm so glad we did it on video too. That was awesome.
So thank you.
Of course. And to everybody listening, hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you're in the world where you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.